over 11,000 people have been murdered by the IDF, and Israel is cheering it all on. So if you want to see what a real good propaganda looks like, this is just basically repeating what Netanyahu says without any pushback. This is Reuters, which has done a wonderful job of propaganda throughout much of this. Reuters is saying Israel not successful in its bid to minimize Gaza civilian casualties. Quote unquote, not successful. Oh, have they not been successful in their efforts to minimize Gaza civilian casualties? There's been no effort. Like, the inaccurate title of that would be Israel has no efforts to minimize civilian atrocities. And in fact, occasionally that's been said by IDF on various public airwaves, that they're going more for just sheer numbers rather than accuracy, sheer numbers of death and destruction. That's why you would go after things like hospitals and schools and refugee camps, places they told people they'd be safe, and then they bomb those places. But so here's Israel just repeating what Netanyahu says as if it makes perfect sense, as if he wouldn't lie, as if Israel has made any effort to minimize the civilian casualties. To continue from the Reuters article, Israel is doing all it can to get civilians out of harm's way as it battles Hamas in Gaza, including dropping leaflets warning them to flee. But its attempts to minimize casualties were not successful, quote unquote, Prime Minister Netanyahu said on Thursday. They've made no efforts. And dropping leaflets to tell people to leave because you're going to bomb a hospital or a school or a neighborhood, that is not an effort. That is not, A, enough of an effort, but B, you shouldn't be bombing those places to begin with if you're not committing ethnic cleansing, if you're not committing genocide. You don't just, the Nazis handed out pamphlets saying that, Jews should leave. Well, then that makes it fine, everything they did after that. No, it's not how it works. These are all war crimes. They're all illegal under international law, multiple international laws, multiple UN resolutions. It doesn't matter whether you dropped a few pamphlets. It doesn't matter whether you called an apartment building. And by the way, the procedure that Israel does, which they've done many times, is they'll call one person in an apartment building. Let's say it's an apartment building. Let's say it's got 100 families, which many of them probably have more than that. But let's say 100 families. They'll call one person and they get them on the phone. They say, you have 1 hour to get everyone in your building out. Click. And then that person does their best, running up and down the apartment building, trying to get everyone out, trying to get them to believe that this is real and not just another prank call or whatever. And maybe they succeed with a certain number of them. Maybe they don't. And then Israel bombs the apartment building and kills whatever, thousands. I mean, not thousands in one strike, but thousands over the past several weeks. And they can, the IDF and Israel will then say, we did what we could to get them to leave. We tried our best. We gave a phone call saying you should leave. It's a joke. It is a joke that they're trying to avoid civilian casualties. It is a joke. And anyone that reports it straight up, like this Reuters article, is just doing the propaganda of the apartheid state of Israel, just spouting this garbage, letting Netanyahu speak his lies, as Israel continues to do something they've been working on and doing for years. As many of you know, Netanyahu went in front of the UN days, like 10 days or something, before October 7th. So before this started, right? Went in front of the UN and held up a map talking about how great things were going to be for Israel and everything. And the map had Palestine erased. That is days before October 7th. Netanyahu held up a map in front of the UN with Palestine, with Gaza, with West Bank, all erased, non-existent. And that is what they've been working towards, and they're continuing it right now. And the idea that anyone could deny that, you're denying all of the evidence. It's utterly preposterous. So then he could, and another point I want to make here, when he says that, we've done our best to minimize civilian casualty. They're also they've cut off the water. They've cut off the power. They've cut off the gasoline, which means you can't operate hospitals. You can't drive around and flee. You can't operate, houses for people that are invalid or sick or babies or whatever else. So when and they've cut off the fuel, and they've cut off medical devices getting into and medicines getting into Gaza. So it's not just the bombs, and this is a critical point, because people, I think, look at the bombs that are being dropped and they go, well, the reason Israel is bombing those places is because they're trying to hit the Hamas tunnels under them, which, by the way, even if there were Hamas tunnels under them, you still can't bomb a hospital and a school and everything else. It's still a war crime. It's still illegal under international law. But even so, they claim, well, Israel's trying to get rid of Hamas, and the only way to get rid of them is to drop these bombs. They're also cutting off the water, okay? And the only reason you cut off water and energy and everything else is to try and force people to leave or die. That is the goal. That is the aim. To continue from this article, and this is a quote from Netanyahu, any civilian death is a tragedy. Oh, yeah, I'm sure he is real torn up about this. And he continues, we shouldn't have any because we're doing everything we can to get civilians out of harm's way. Oh, really? Like turning off the water? Like no clean water? Like no the medicines for the disease that is running rampant through these refugee camps because everyone's living on top of each other and has no medicine? He says, we're doing everything we can while Hamas is doing everything they can to keep them in harm's way. Not true. Not true. Okay. Go talk any interview you see with a Palestinian. Ask them how much Hamas has put them in harm's way. Ask them how much Hamas has dragged them into a spot Israel's going to bomb and said, stay here. Zero. There's no Palestinians that are forced to stay somewhere by Hamas. It's just garbage lies. And then Netanyahu continues, we send leaflets. We call them on their cell phones. That's the one call I told you about in an apartment building, telling them to get 100 people to evacuate. And we say leave. And many have left. He then continues, the other thing that I can say is that we'll try to finish the job with minimal civilian casualties. By the way, as I've mentioned, finish the job means eliminate all Palestinians from Gaza. Whether that means force them into tent cities in the Sinai Desert in Egypt, or it means that they died and they were killed by Israel. One or the other. And also in all these deaths, we talk about over 11,000 have been killed, have been murdered by the IDF. That is only counting the ones directly hit by bombs. That is not counting all of the thousands that have died over the past many months due to disease, due to dirty water, due to the fact that preventable diseases cannot be treated in Gaza because they can't get the medicines, because Israel won't let the medicines in. So none of that death and destruction is counted in these numbers. And here is Reuters just spitting it back to you like it's the truth. Essentially zero pushback in this article, just quoting Netanyahu and trying to get you to believe Netanyahu. Now, they do give the numbers dead. They say at least 11,500 people have been confirmed killed, 4,700 of them children. As I've mentioned before, Gaza, even before October 7th, is 50% children. So Israel's attack is an attack on children. 2/3 of Gaza Strip's population, 2.3 million people, have been made homeless by the war. On Thursday, Israel's Air Force dropped leaflets in parts of South Gaza telling people to evacuate for their own safety. Okay, did you follow that? Dropped leaflets in South Gaza. The way this thing started on October 8th was they told everyone in North Gaza to evacuate south because south was the place they'd be safe. Keep in mind, Gaza is only 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. It's not a big, it's basically a small American town. So they told everyone in North Gaza, evacuate south. A lot have. Many have called it akin to the Trail of Tears. People walking 20 miles to try and get to somewhere safe without they've left their homes, they've left their belongings, they've left everything. They've often left members of their family who have died or they've gotten separated from because they don't have phones anymore because all the power's dead in Gaza. So they fled south, and now leaflets are being dropped on them saying, you need to leave or we're going to bomb you. What do you do if that were you? If you'd taken your family with whatever you could carry of your worldly possessions, marched south for 10, 15 miles, 20 miles, and then you get there and a leaflet rains down saying, flee or we're going to bomb you. Where are you going to flee to? Where are you going to go? Egypt is not letting Gazans in because A, it doesn't want a refugee crisis in Egypt, but more importantly, because they feel they'd be facilitating Israel's ethnic cleansing. Now Israel's doing everything they can to get Egypt to take all these people. They've put in. They're offering them billions in debt relief. They're also threatening them with bombings. They've already bombed the Egyptian border once or twice to show that they're willing to do it.